June 2025. For the first time in history, Canada exported more seaborne crude oil to China than to the United States. This shift, reported by Reuters, marks a significant change in global oil trade dynamics. The Trans Mountain Expansion, TMX pipeline, operational since May 2024, has enabled Canada to redirect its oil exports eastward, with China now receiving an average of 299,000 barrels per day, surpassing the U.S.'s 286,000 barrels. This development signals a potential realignment of energy alliances, as Canada leverages its resources to forge new partnerships beyond its traditional ties with the U.S. For over half a century, Canada pumped out oil, but almost all of it flowed in one direction, south. Roughly 98% of its crude exports went to the United States. It was easy, profitable on paper, and completely one-sided. American refineries were designed for Canada's heavy sour crude, locking the two nations in a codependent relationship. But the catch? Every barrel sold was discounted, often $15 or more, just for being Canadian. Refined in Texas, priced in Houston, controlled by Washington. This wasn't trade, it was a trap. And with no tidewater access, Canada had no escape. Until now. Because in May 2024, the chains snapped, and suddenly oil wasn't just a commodity anymore. It was leverage. After a decade of lawsuits, protests, environmental pushback, and ballooning costs, the Trans Mountain Expansion, TMX, was finally completed in May 2024. Overnight, Canada's oil export capacity nearly tripled, from 300,000 to 890,000 barrels per day. But this wasn't just about volume. It was about direction. The pipeline stretches from Alberta's oil sands to a terminal in Burnaby, British Columbia, giving Canada, for the first time, direct access to Pacific shipping lanes. No more relying on Gulf Coast refineries. No more pricing discounts. And, more importantly, no more gatekeeping from Washington. When the first VLCC tankers set course for Asia, the global oil calculus changed. Canada now had a new customer base and a new role, no longer America's gas station, but Asia's rising energy partner. In January 2025, former and future President Donald Trump, campaigning hard on energy nationalism, lit a political fuse: a 10% tariff on Canadian oil and gas. Framed as a national security measure, insiders knew the truth. It was economic retaliation. Trump saw what TMX meant: independence. Canada didn't need the US anymore. But when Washington expected Canada to fold, it didn't. It rerouted. The tariff, meant to corner Canada, became the catalyst that pushed it further east. While headlines screamed trade war, Canadian officials quietly greenlit deals with Asian buyers. It wasn't defiance, it was evolution. Trump tried to tighten control. Instead, he loosened America's grip. And as oil tankers sailed westward, so did Canada's future. While Washington fumbled with tariffs, Beijing moved with precision. In late May 2025, China's state-owned Sinochem quietly secured the first long-haul cargo via TMX, 550,000 barrels of heavy Canadian crude loaded at Burnaby and bound for the port of Ningbo. But this wasn't just a one-time shipment, it was the opening move. Behind the scenes, Chinese refining giant Rongsheng Chemical, which processes over 800,000 barrels per day, had already locked in multi-year deals with major players like Suncor and Canadian Natural Resources. These weren't simple sales. They were FOB contracts, meaning once that oil hits the dock, China owns the game. They can ship it to Beijing, resell it to Tokyo, or reroute it to Mumbai for arbitrage profits. Canada didn't just find a buyer, it found a new power broker. And China. It didn't roll in with tanks or threats, it came with contracts, capital, and timing. With that one deal, a 60-year US-Canada energy alliance cracked, and the leverage shifted east. For decades, Canada took the discount, selling oil to the US at below market prices, often $10 to $15 less per barrel. Why? Because it had no other choice. But now, with TMX open and Asia buying, that math just changed. China is paying full freight, even offering premiums for consistent supply. According to analysts, that shift could generate over $20 billion in new annual revenue for Canadian producers. It's not just about profits, it's about power. The United States can't strong-arm its northern neighbor when that neighbor has better options. Every barrel redirected east tightens supply in the US, where Gulf Coast refineries still depend on Canadian crude. And every dollar earned from Asian markets makes Canadian oil less beholden to American politics. For the first time ever, Canada holds the cards. Oil is just the opening move. Behind it comes gas, electricity, and geopolitical muscle. LNG Canada, a $40 billion project on British Columbia's coast, is set to ship its first liquefied natural gas cargo to Asia by December 2025. Destinations: China, Japan, South Korea, markets where energy demand is rising fast. Meanwhile, Ottawa launched a $6.5 billion global markets accelerator to supercharge exports beyond North America. And the pressure isn't only westward. Canada exported 42 terawatt-hours of electricity to the US in 2024 alone, enough to power 4 million homes. Now, Ontario and Quebec are floating tariffs on that power, warning Washington, leverage flows both ways. Canada isn't just building pipelines, it's building an empire of energy routes. And for the first time, it's playing chess, not checkers. The US didn't see it coming, or worse, it ignored the warnings. American refineries aren't built for just any oil. They're calibrated for Canada's heavy, sour crude. Replacing it isn't as easy as swapping suppliers. Alternatives like Saudi or Venezuelan oil are less consistent, more expensive, and tied to volatile regimes. Goldman Sachs now projects US oil prices could spike by $5 to $10 per barrel if even a fraction of Canadian supply is redirected to Asia. And it's already happening. The US isn't just losing barrels, it's losing the very foundation of its energy security. Canada moved, America froze. This isn't just about crude oil contracts or export volumes. It's about who gets to call the shots in the next global era. Canada isn't defecting from the US. It's declaring independence. And China? It's not just buying oil, it's buying resilience. Every new deal Canada signs with Beijing chips away at America's dominance, not with confrontation, but with quiet consistency. Washington used to assume Canadian loyalty. Now it has to earn it. TMX gave Canada a door out, China held it open, and the United States, for the first time in decades, finds itself not in control, but on the waiting list. No bombs dropped, no borders redrawn, just oil quietly flowing west. On May 22, 2025, when China officially overtook the US as Canada's top seaborne crude customer, the shift wasn't loud, but it was seismic. TMX isn't just a pipeline, it's a pivot. A nation that once begged for approval now builds its own path. While American leaders argue over tariffs and tweets, Canada signs, contracts, ships energy, and rewrites alliances. And in the silence between headlines, a new order is forming. You won't hear it shouted. But if you've stayed with this story, you've heard it. The future's already moving. East. And there you have it. Canada just redrew the map without firing a shot. If you found this video eye-opening, let us know what you think in the comments. Do you think this is the beginning of a major global power shift? If you haven't already, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. It's totally free. And tap the notification bell so you don't miss what's coming next. We break down the stories behind the headlines, and we're just getting started. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.